Okay, everyone, welcome to the Dharma Gates podcast. Today we're very honored to have Guo Gu who's just recently released a new book called Silent Illumination, a Chan Buddhist path to natural awakening, which I just finished and was profoundly moved and inspired by. So, I've often heard many praises of Guo Gu and I'm happy to be able to speak with him today and share his life and training and, mode and approach to practice with you all. So we often begin with a slideshow, kind of going through Guo Gu life. And if you're ready, we can jump in now. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Would you like to tell us about how you began practice?
Yes, thank you. So, the upper left corner, that's my late teacher, Master Sheng Yen. That's how he looked when I met him. Something like that. This picture of the upper left corner was taken in the late 70s, probably. I don't know the exact year. And the upper right corner is maybe 2 years after I met him. So that's 1982. When I met him in New York, Queens, New York, I'm on the left, my brother's on the right. When I met him, I did not really want to learn meditation. I was more interested in martial arts. So, back in the 80s, every Sunday matinee, there would be reruns of Chinese martial arts movies with sound dubs in English. You know, the type of movie that the mouth were moving and then the sound would come a second or two later, talking. So, I had already practiced meditation before, learned it, when I was 4. So, 1972. My first teacher, that is, the photo on the lower right that you see, Master Guangqin. He was an ascetic monk, widely respected in Taiwan as a teacher who were known for 2 things. First, his samadhi power, meditative absorption. He would regularly enter into meditative absorption trance for days, sometimes weeks at a time. And he was also known as someone who only ate fruit. Not only a vegetarian. I know there's a special term for that, someone who eats fruits only. So I met him when I was 4 with my family, and he taught me how to sit in meditation. And I have a lot of fond memories of visiting him on an almost weekly basis from 4 years old to when I was 10. So I have a somewhat of a foundation in meditation. But, being a teenager, at the time when I met Master Sheng Yen, I was just interested in martial arts. So I see Master Sheng Yen, and I remember first time I met him, I kind of tugged his robe and asked him whether he can teach me meditation. This was in Queens Old Center. And he says to me, very, very lively, humorously, he says, "Sure, yeah, there's some prerequisites. You gotta learn to meditate before I can teach you. And there I was. I already know how to meditate. He says, oh yeah, stay overnight. Tomorrow we have a 1-day retreat. So I stayed overnight and we did the retreat. And I began to develop a very good impression of him and a relationship with him. So my mom was the person who brought me to him. And my mom was looking for a teacher. We migrated to the United States, left Master Guangqin, and now we were in search of different teachers. So both my mom and I really gravitated to this Master Sheng Yen. So we started to visit on a weekly basis and participating in various events, meditation or otherwise, like the photo in the lower left corner. This was a trip to down the shore in Atlanta, in New Jersey, but we couldn't really enjoy the beach because it was rained out. At that time, it was it's not like so convenient now. You just pick up your phone and you check out the weather app. Basically, it was sunny. We thought everything's good. We started driving down there, and it was pouring rain. So we're all standing underneath the eave of a particular building. We were looking at the beach. So that's the slide. If you can go to the next slide, I can talk about those.
Can I just ask you a couple of questions?
Oh yeah, sure. Sure.
I wonder what your first impressions of your teachers were. I think that initial moment is so interesting, and how much of that impacts you, or what shifts, or what remains the same.
Yeah. Thank you. I always felt very comfortable with monastics, Buddhist monks. And partly it was because of Master Guangqin. We visited him so often, so frequently, and my mom taught mathematics at this private women's high school. And her favorite student became a nun under Master Guangqin. That was the connection for us to be close to him. And I just grew up running around the temple, playing with my brother at the courtyard, hanging out with the monks, and we became very close. So when I met Master Sheng Yen, I would consider my root teacher. I didn't really have any hang-ups, formalities. That's why I just tugged his robe. You're not supposed to do that. So I was just tugging his robe. He was talking with someone. I was tugging his robe. He looked down at me. He's like, this little boy. I was like, do you know Kung Fu? And he was like, oh, yes. I can walk up that wall, across the ceiling, and come down. Jokingly, of course. But I really liked him because he was humorous. And we were kind of just bantering around, kind of playing around. And so I had a very good impression of him. And so I told him I knew how to sit, he knew. And I told him who my master was. I was young, I was 10 years old, proud. And so he was playing with me, and I was kind of playful with him. And that was the beginning. Mm. Later on, as time went by, he saw me grow up from a boy, all the phases of my years as a teenager. And I was always very close to him. So he was unique because he did not put on air like a Chan master, or anyone special. So he was just very down to earth. Talking to a boy, he became a boy. Talking to a government official, he was very solemn and conversed eloquently. So he was very alive and dynamic in that sense. So after having witnessed me growing up through all my crazy days, right after college, I became his first attendant monk. And it seems like he was planning for it. Almost like waiting. I say that because when I announced to him that I would like to become a monk under him, and he was excited, and he just poured out all this plan. Like, he's been thinking. He's like, okay, first, you gotta do this, and you're gonna be traveling with me. And it was just like overwhelming, because it was a very moving experience for me to express that to him. And he just came pouring with this story of this plan for me, for my future. So it was like he's been thinking about this for a long time, So,
And can I ask, do you remember what the meditation instruction was that you received both at 4 and then at 10?
Yeah. The meditation instruction at 4 was observing the breath here. Just experiencing it. And Master Sheng Yen taught me counting the breath. Yeah. So when I was 4, it was an informal meditation instruction. I would visit him, but I couldn't stay still. He just taught me basically the posture. He really focused on the posture. And there was a particular way he taught me how to put my legs into the full lotus. Instead of one leg over the other on the thigh and then the other one on top. He taught me to fold my leg like this, and from the space here, grab the foot and pull it out. And that was okay. Being so young, my limbs were very limber. I remember that explicitly because he said to me, if you're able to do this, limber, continue, then you wouldn't need to use your hands to put your legs in the posture anymore. So I was like, what? What do you mean? He used to sit in the chair that you see in the photo. So he just put down his legs and see, like this. Just, it's like hands. It was so flexible. And I was so impressed by that. And I kept on trying to do it by myself, without hands. So he focused on that. In order to, I guess he had to make it fun for me or interesting for me. And then he just told me to just experience the breath. He says, eye to the tip of the nose and mind to the breath. So stay there. He told me whenever I feel like getting up, I could just leave. So when we visited him, normally he would sit in that chair, and there are lay people around him. And so he would talk to them, answer questions, and I would sit in front of him. But when my brother wanted to go play, or when we didn't want to sit, we just got up and just run around the monastery. So it was very simple. He just wanted to make it interesting for me. Master Sheng Yen taught me how to count the breath. It was a particular way. I guess he tried to make it interesting for me too. So he said, you count from 1 to 10 exhalations, but you can also count backwards. 20 to 2, 19 to 1. And see how many times you can do this. So it was a one-day retreat. That was a formal meditation instruction. It was all day. And it integrated, it was silent. It integrated not only sitting meditation, but walking meditation and stretching exercises and work practice. So everyone's assigned to clean something after the meal. So we got up 5 a.m. and it ended around 5 or 6, something like that. So there are periods of sitting, periods of instruction, and then experimenting different forms of practice, walking, working, and so on. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was, later on I found out that was something that he designed for Westerners. A kind of a whole one-day package of introduction to Chan. It was unconventional because he integrated work practice and also theories of practice, and the unconventional part was really the stretching yoga exercises. So he, by I think I took the class maybe 1980 or 81. He already had it established like that.
And this, you were doing this while you were 10.
I took the class probably 11, 10, 10 or 11.
Okay. Do you remember what it was like?
It was with a company of maybe a dozen people. So a dozen people stayed over the center. People were sleeping bags in the kitchen, in the meditation room, the library, just wherever people can sleep. And then the next day morning, the boards were hit, people got up and just followed the routine. And then I remember I wasn't, of course I didn't formally register. So they accommodated me. And I remember one time I was pretty bored because he's talking about theories and all that stuff, about meditation. So I asked if I could ask my mom if I could leave, and so I just running around the center, drawing pictures on the 3rd floor library, blackboard, and so on. Yeah. So I kind of found my way to hang out at the center, and he made accommodations for me to kind of come and go.
Wow. That seems incredibly fortunate as a 10 or 11-year-old to be able to spend time with him and in the monastery. I always have this, I don't want to keep this too long on this slide, but I always have this question of what was initially the aspiration or the draw to practice, and it sounded like yours was so early that maybe it's hard to even, but what question was being answered, or what aspiration was moving you?
It was very simple. I felt an affinity with him, like a kid. I really liked him. And, I felt close to him, very familiar. And I just wanted to be close to him. It wasn't really meditation. I thought I knew how to do it, but I had to go through it and demonstrate to him, I know how to do this. And I was sitting from the full lotus and show off like that, but it was this connection that I felt, and that was, I guess that's the undercurrent bond that I had with him. So when I saw him, when I interacted with him, it was very familiar. I really liked him and the way he spoke to me. So that became the foundation, I guess. It was only later on that I really learned about Buddha Dharma. I'm supposed to see the world as suffering. I'm supposed to aspire for bodhicitta, bodhi mind. That came much later. And I do want to point out something that you said. A lot of people come to Buddhism, the practice, with conscious intent. Resolve a problem, encounter difficulties, life's suffering they aspire to. But even from the time of the Buddha, things are not this simple. People come from all walks of life for all kinds of reasons. I remember having a conversation with my teacher, because I was just astonished when I became a novice and people are becoming monks and nuns. They have no idea how to meditate. It's a completely different scene in Asia. Parents passed away, brother got into a car accident, died, women refusing to marriage. They don't want to be part of the marriage economy. They like Master Sheng Yen and his teachings from Sunday general talks, and they choose monasticism. It's almost like, it was just astonishing to me. And I remember, so it's completely different from the West. New York, people come, they want to meditate, they want awakening, they're really into meditation. In Asia, so I asked them, I said, Shifu, these people don't even know how to sit. And he said to me, it doesn't matter how they come to the door, it's what they do afterwards. And he gave me one example. He says, do you know how Ananda became a monk under Shakyamuni Buddha? I said, no. He says, Ananda really liked the way Siddhartha Gautama looked. He was attracted to him. That's it. He felt that, wow, it's really handsome monk. I came back after awakening. It's just very attractive. So Ananda, seeing everyone else going to become a monk, so he joined in too. So no idea about suffering, and all these people are just palace people. When Shakyamuni Buddha went back to his father's palace, a lot of people began to attract to him, left the household life. That was mainly his first Sangha. I'm sure people of all walks of life, they joined.
Thank you. That's a beautiful teaching.
For me, so it's really like what we do with our life after we come to the path. That matters.
Thank you. All right. I think, let's see. So next we have you as a novitiate and as a priest.
So the picture on the far left, black and white photo, all the way at the edge. That one, I was with Master Sheng Yen. That's a funny story. So I went to college in New York City, and I had arrangements with Master Sheng Yen that he would let me live on the 4th floor of his monastery, which was vacant, which was a huge 1,500 square feet studio. I was an art major, so I did installation art, did huge paintings, and I was so fortunate because he knows my mom, he knows Master Sheng Yen. So his temple, which is still there, is at the edge of Chinatown in New York City. The front door, the back door is Little Italy. So it's on Center Street, 214 Center Street. And he's the one that, I was at the 100-foot pole, resisting, wandering, holding on. And he's the one that gave me a push right off the edge. The story goes like this. So I told my teacher I would become a monk. He was doing a 7-day retreat, Master Sheng Yen. He gave me this whole plan, scared the bejesus out of me. My future is kind of set. And I chickened out, actually. So after the retreat, I said, Shifu, I need some time to think. And he's like, okay, fine. And the next week I said, I'm going to do it. He says, okay, when are you going to move in? So college just ended. I had a long-standing girlfriend of 4 years throughout my college. And I told my girlfriend, I have to do this. If I don't do it now, I don't know when I'm going to be able to have this opportunity again. And she was sobbing, crying, and I can't stand when women cry. So I said, okay. And so I went back and forth, 3 times. So I was living under Master Sheng Yen's roof, right, during college. But I was practicing at another temple, Master Sheng Yen's temple in Queens. His temple is in Chinatown, Little Italy. So he goes to me. I walked past him one day. He used to call me, hey kid. He said, hey kid. I was like, yes. He says, I didn't tell him. I did not tell him what was going on. And Master Sheng Yen did not tell him that I wanted to become a monk. I confirmed. So he says, what are you waiting for? You've been practicing all these years. Do it now. Go to Master Sheng Yen. Become a monk. And when I heard that, something just clicked. It was so clear. It was so apparent that this resistance is the vexations, is what's holding me back all of my life up to that point. And I needed to let go. So I did not call my long-standing girlfriend, this beautiful Portuguese girl. What I did was I moved in and then I called her. So there's no way to turn around to come back. So I moved in, packed up everything, and I told her. By that time, we've gone through this already twice, so she knows it's coming. So she wished me the best. And very grateful to her. And began my novitiate training.
Wow.
The picture next to that was the picture of my novice, I think, first ordained.
And can I ask you a question? Just before we...
Sure.
I just wonder, what was it like for you to be in New York, be in college, and then also be training, living in a temple and then training with Master Sheng Yen?
Yeah. It was a fun time. It was a wonderful time. New York, my time in New York City during college, I went to School of Visual Arts. So I was a fine arts major, did large paintings, later on move on to installation. So that studio was a blessing to me. And my art, as students, art students, we're learning basically about history of Western art. We have art history classes, so everyone's drawing inspiration from Picasso, Jackson Pollock, and all these people. And I felt a little out of place. So I drew on my own background. I looked into Buddhism. And what inspired for all of my art during that time, except freshman year, I was still trying to find my place, was the Southern Song Dynasty art that's influenced by Chan. Small paintings on fan or sometimes hanging scroll where there's nothing. A little tiny boat, very suggestive art. Spilled ink for distant mountains. It's an interplay of form and emptiness. So you use form to reveal the vastness of the lake, and the distant mountain. So you can't reveal emptiness by just leaving the canvas blank. This is 12th century. They're not that abstract yet, right? So it was this interplay with form, and I translated that through modern medium of first encaustic oil paintings and installation art. So I was in New York, in the art scene, as an art student, and absorbing everything in the city. But I wanted to demonstrate the emptiness of everything that I saw. So I was living in this world where art, practice, and meditation, and the Buddhist teaching on emptiness, selflessness was filled this world. So, for example, my graduation piece, which was sent by the school to represent the school in Soho. At that time, Soho, there's still a lot of galleries. Now there's those shops. But SVA had its own art gallery. So my installation piece was, I shared it with one more person, this long gallery. I had the second half. So I built a wall exactly the same as the gallery, from floor to ceiling. So I cut the gallery in kind of 1/3 in the back. So only one person can go in this narrow entryway. So I can control the light. So I bought pure white adjusted light. I installed it in the ceiling, and I built a fake floor, a raised floor, but not to the edge. And in front of it is this wall. And I imprinted the Heart Sutra. So when the person first go in, the room is dimmed. They see this light casting down this short wall, 6 feet, so it's not to the ceiling, that one, in this space. Very quiet, silent. The Heart Sutra. Some passages of it, form is emptiness, emptiness form. And then there's 2 entryways into what's behind it. So when a person goes behind, they see the floor is raised, and they start to hear the sound. So I use the sound to reveal silence, interplay. So the sound is a humming sound. And as soon as a person starts to tune into that, the sound outside Soho was silenced. Right? The gallery was silenced. And the person's sixth sense faculties were heightened. They see dimly lit light casting down on the heart sutra. Suddenly they pick up the sound. Now it's silence. And then they will start to smell something. What did I do? On the fake floor, I poured 300 pounds of wax. And I used white pigment to mix into this wax when I melted them down. So they're like clouds. So I built a cloud square space. And in the middle, I carved out a symmetrical lotus flower with water as the canal making up the lotus. So it's actually a water lotus that I had to go and water every day because the water would evaporate. A water lotus, and automatically I got every viewer for my art to take off their shoes. They naturally walked in the center of the lotus. And they sat down. These are people, they're not meditative, they're just normal people from off the street. So it was inviting and it was quieting. So I accomplished quieting their mind by using the six senses to make them attune to their own sixth sense faculty and their embodied experiencing of art. So I started out with wax too, but it was encaustic, mixing oil pigment with wax and the paintings. And then I just flattened it by a 20 by 20, floor, not to the edge, so it looked floating, and the speaker was in the center of the lotus. And I poured white powder around the edge, so it looked like the square in the center was floating with kind of white powder. But you don't see it right away. What you see is the wall with text. So that was my world. Art, installation, with the Dharma, meditation.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That sounds like an incredible installation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So very early on, I learned embodiment. Not up here. Buddha Dharma is not up here. So an art that created a space to activate the viewer's own experiencing. So I want to do that because I was sick and tired of painting a painting and then people look at it. Always a duality between the painting and them. So I want people to be part of my art. I want them to be in my art. I want them to experience my art in all senses. And I got that really from Buddhism. The Song Dynasty paintings. So living in New York was great. All the art in Soho, galleries, inspiration. But I didn't want to draw from Western art, so I drew from Buddhism. So that was my entryway. And I'll tell you a funny story. So, once in a while, the Chan Center, my teacher had bazaar sales, garage sales, raise funds, whatever. I remember I donated one of my wax paintings, elongated, vertical, just like the hanging scrolls. Distant mountains in blotches, but it's all wax. It's translucent, semi-translucent. And he's viewing everyone's donation. We rented this big space. it was very funny. I was very proud. My thing is hanging over there. People are donating jewelry, clothing, all kinds of stuff. And he saw that. He was like, who brought in that piece of wood over there? It's garbage. And I was like, Shifu, that's my art. I was like, oh, sorry. He kind of just left. So, I guess I told that story because that inspired me a little bit too. That was during maybe third year in college. These things placed in a particular context, normal people will not be able to appreciate it. I have to engulf the person in my space for them to experience this. They have to feel it in their body. How do I do that? I have no idea. So just step by step, I started to extend beyond painting, tried sculpture, and I started to install spaces in my studio at school and also in my studio at home. So kind of step by step, and then gradually I became doing that. And then I felt that I'm just kind of dancing around outside, doing all this art. Just dive right in. Just become a monk. Forget about doing this. Just become a monk. Just practice. So it's time. It was time to do that. So I eventually was able to do that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think we have a lot of, a lot of the people engaged in Dharma Gates are college students, and I think they're trying to figure out how do they navigate practice, deep practice, and kind of being in college, and how do they, maybe include Buddhism more into their activities. So to hear of your such a deep, thorough kind of investigation of Buddhism through art and through the making of experience, I think is very inspiring. It's very inspiring to me, and I hope it is to them too. Let's move to the next slideshow, or next slide.
So as Master Sheng Yen's attendant, we travel different parts of the world, Europe, Poland, Croatia. So this is a picture in Croatia. I think this one is 1997. So I accompanied my teacher to Croatia for the first time. This was part of a tour, I remember. We had visited Poland before that. And possibly Czech. Oh no, Czech was a year or two before this. So, Czech Republic. So, this was a 7-day retreat. And as his attendant, I wore many hats. I attended to him. I translated for him. The picture on the left is me translating, holding a tape recorder. This is old style. We didn't have iPhones. So we would record his talks. Later on, they would be edited. So I held the recorder when he spoke. I held it close to him when I spoke, close to me. Also, I was his secretary, arranging for these trips. And also oversaw the different publications. Edited some of his talks. And so on. But I can share a little bit about being an attendant, if that's interesting.
Please. Mm-hmm.
One very moving experience that I have was that really learning how to take care of a person. So usually normally people are just involved in their own stuff, whether their own concerns, their own experience, their own practice, and so on, their own awakening, and so on. And yet, what we recite in the liturgy is the 4 great vows, sentient beings, innumerable, vow to save them all. So there's a kind of built-in terms of a lived experience, there's a built-in hypocrisy there. We're vowing to do this, yet the reality of our lived experience is not really, it's really self-centered. I want to do this, I don't want to do that. So slowly I was becoming aware of this, and you can't be not aware of this when you're attending a Chan master. You can't be self-involved. Yet I was, as a novice. I will forget stuff. I will remember my own stuff when we travel. Oh, that I remember. But his stuff, I will forget. Just perfect example of self-involvement, self-referential attachment. And until one day, we came back from some trip. The next morning, we do the morning chant. And we're doing the chanting. And I love chanting. And my voice is always heard. Again, self-involved. Everyone's chanting, but my voice is just a little bit extra loud. Stupidity, my stupidity. An example. So, and everyone, I was the youngest in the monastery, everyone just adored me. And I loved that, I loved that. Self-involved. And they really liked the melody. So in the Chinese chanting, it's called the Oceanic Wave. The chanting is called Oceanic Wave because it's not monotone. Like don 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 don. It's not like that. There's a melody to it, and everyone's melody is like a wave. It's in the same octave, so it's not too far off. So same octave, but different keys, and where one person take a breath change, other person's sound will come in. So the sound is continuous, like a wave. It's like one sheet of ocean, continuous. So we have this particular melody. You're in tune with the whole chanting, and it's part of your embodied practice. It's chanting. And at the end of the chant, when the master leaves, the hall is silent. He leaves. He stops right in front of me. He says, Guo Gu, you chant pretty well. Praise me in front of everyone. I loved it. Right? So, Chan masters are great at doing this. They draw you out and they go for the kill. So, draw me out. Here's myself comes out. He says, particularly the 4 great vows. That's really good. And I said, thank you, Shifu. Being a fool. Thank you, Shifu. He says, yeah, too bad. Your mouth saving all beings. You can't even take care of one person, your own teacher. He walked away. Everyone heard that. And he was right. He was right. Prior to that, he scolded me, told me different things, remember, so nothing worked. That one worked. And I was frozen. And tears just came out. after the teacher leaves, everyone, single file, everyone left the hall. I couldn't move. Literally, I couldn't move. I was just frozen in tears, like faucets running down. And there was such remorse, sense of repentance, humility. Of my wrongdoing and myself, the sense of self. So it was so crystal clear. It was just in front. Here's your self-attachment right here. And after I came to, I rushed to his room. So I just opened the door. I fell on my knees and said, Shifu, I will never forget anything that you asked of me, ever again. And you know what he says? He says, we'll see. He says, we'll see. And I remembered that. I was still in tears, he says. And then after a while, I was still kneeling on the ground, not moving. He says, Guo Gu, these are not liturgy, words we chant. It's methods of practice. We have to embody, we have to put it to practice. You are in a position to be my attendant. You have to learn to take care of one sentient being. He says, if you learn to take care of one sentient being, then you will know how to take care of the Sangha in the future. If you know how to take care of the Sangha, you will be able to respond to the needs of the society and the nation. And then we talk about all sentient beings. So do this right. So I remember I created a mantra because I was so self-involved. I came up with all kinds of ways to get myself out of the way, to pay attention to my teacher all the time, what he needs. And then created a mantra, the first syllable of a word. It doesn't mean anything, but the first syllable of a word that remind me what he needed, at least physically. Then I can understand his heart, his future. Think of things before he thinks of how to bring Chan to benefit all people. So, 吃住穿戴睡. Eating, diet, meaning his stomach expands, so diet. Sleeping, or residing, abiding. That reminded me of wherever we travel, where is the window that would cause draft? He's an elderly person. He can't have draft in the back of his neck and joints. So where is the draft coming from? Where is the space in which he's living? So that's the second one. What is he wearing? And I used to forget, we're going to cold climate places, and then I forget to bring his scarf, things like that. So what he needs to wear, different climate, where are we visiting, and what he needs. What he needs to bring. Gifts to the invitee, presents to different people, make arrangements, appropriate one, and then sleep. Sleep will be massage. He used to make me watch a masseuse and learn what this very expensive masseuse that we paid to sit next to him, just learn how to do it. I used to experiment on him, try to, do all the kind of shiatsu and all kinds of stuff. So, and then bath before, he sleeps, get the water out, shoes, slippers, things that he needs. So these 5 things, 吃住穿戴睡, took care of pretty much most of the things. So I'm constantly aware, not self-aware anymore, constantly aware of what this person, moving this body, moving through space, all the things that he might see, he could see, he needed to see, and he needed to experience, should be taken care of. And then from there on, I expanded to his vision. His vision, how he felt, his interior state, and his vows. And I took his vows as my vow. Spread Chan Buddhism. So that is something concrete I feel I can share to your audience. To really, when you're with a person, like a partner or a friend or a family member, it's the ones that we're really close to. Sometimes we lose that respect, or we're absent-minded and we're back to our own self. Sometimes we treat friends better than family members or siblings, for example. So start with someone that's very close to you to embody the first of the 4 great vows, to save all beings. How do we do that? To serve all beings, to save all beings. And how do we do that? To lessen our own self-referential vexations. How? Learn the Dharma. So the 4 great vows are actually sequential. Save all beings. How do we do that? Get the clutter out. Vexations. Right? How do we get the clutter out? Learn the Dharma. Embody the Dharma. Offer yourself. Master all limitless approaches to Dharma. So I created the 5 mantra that to deal with every aspect of his life. Take care of one person first. And then expand from that. That's how we become selfless Buddhahood. So something very concrete. So the 4 great vows are an approach to practice that presents a signpost, kind of guidelines.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's a very powerful example of the ways in which actually having a teacher in person, being able to actually spend time with them, can be so fruitful, and really, learning to take care of him sounded like it was a really big part of your path. How extraordinary. Wow. Well, I think the next slide is some of these retreats that you attended him for.
Yes, the one on the left is Poland. The one on the right is Croatia. And we would often do these tours. He would spend 3 months in Taiwan, 3 months in New York. And the trip back and forth, that's when we used to take these trips. So on the way back to New York, we would stop at these places, or on the way back to Taiwan, we would lead retreats elsewhere, and so on. So I was very fortunate to spend time with him. And at the developmental stage of my life, having a guide like Master Sheng Yen, who was really like my father, who saw me from a kid growing up, and given me a life direction, and meet all these wonderful people. So, a side point from that, you could say, it's very important to study with a teacher. We can read all the Buddha Dharma that we want, but it's very important. It's the interactions, the embodied ways in which your teacher, in his own idiosyncratic ways, lived the Dharma, to observing and his teachings, also just living with him, or maybe in modern time it's hard to live with a teacher, but studying with the teacher being with them, that we learn through osmosis, little by little, some of the living wisdom gets rubbed off. We get to learn in concrete situations, like life situations. That is very important. Those are living examples. When someone criticizes your teacher, which a lot of people, sometimes a lot of people did out of jealousy and whatever, and how he engaged with the world socially. Imperceptibly, you start to pick up these things. Different ups and downs of life, conflict, praise, blame, having, lacking, fame, criticism, all these different circumstances. By practicing with the teacher, not retreat, but just in daily life, seeing how he navigates daily life, that we also learn as students of the path.
Yeah, I was really moved in your book. I thought you write quite persuasively about the importance of daily life as the actual place of practice, the opportunity that we actually get to work on deconditioning ourselves of vexation, really getting to have our own egoism reflected back to us and then to be of service. I'd love to talk to you more about that. I have a greater question, but maybe we'll go on to the next slide, which is more of your teacher Sheng Yen. I wonder if is there anything you'd like to share more about him, or a story you'd like to tell?
These are pictures, I guess you can call miscellaneous episodes. Upper left corner, we brought them to Central Park in New York because we needed to do PR for flyers and all kinds of stuff, so we did a photo session. We were in Central Park. The black and white photo of him is when he was a young monk. This one must have been him having received the full ordination, bhikshu precept, the black and white. The one next to him is him in 1977 in Taiwan, taking care of the funeral of his teacher, Master Dongchu. But while he was in Taiwan, he visited Master Ling Yuan of the Lingji school. And that's him in the yellow-red robe. And that's when he received the transmission in the Lingji, or Japanese would pronounce it Rinzai line. And that's also the person, Master Ling Yuan, who was the person that helped him to see his self-nature when he was 28 years old. So Master Sheng Yen escaped communism by joining the youth army in 1949 to go to Taiwan. Because the monks then, if you're a novice monk, basically you have no money. So the venerable monks, well-established, high-profile monks, they would typically be able to afford a boat ticket, go to escape to Singapore or Malaysia or Taiwan, Hong Kong, places like that. But young monks, he and his monk schoolmates in the seminary basically just all joined the youth army so they can escape to go to Taiwan. So he was stuck in the army for many years and continued his practice. And he was on leave. He developed this natural sense of wonderment, the doubt sensation that we spoke about, the great ball of doubt in the koan practice. By reflecting on his life and encountering the teachings, he didn't know where his future will hold. So he developed this natural sense of wonderment, and meeting Master Ling Yuan was an occasion which allowed Master Sheng Yen to enter the door of Chan. Poured out his heart, and because he used to be a monk, so the visiting different temples on his break in different parts of Taiwan, the abbot allowed him to stay on the same platform as Master Ling Yuan. Master Ling Yuan practiced not sleeping, lying down, so he was sitting up. And my teacher took that opportunity to sit with him. And at one point, he approached him with all kinds of problems. Kind of building up this crescendo, just pouring out his heart. Until Master Ling slams the platform. Tell him to, who the hell has all these problems? Questions. And upon hearing that, his doubt sensation, kind of great block, wall of doubt just completely shattered. And he experienced awakening. So that was in 1950s. And then Master Sheng Yen, went on to be reordained under Master Dongchu, entered a 6-year solitary retreat, went to Japan. He wanted to revive Chinese Buddhism through education. No one wanted to do that, so he was a kind of a lone wolf going abroad to study to Japan, got his PhD, come back to Taiwan. No one really wanted him. Didn't know what to do with him. He was the first Chinese Buddhist cleric to go through this modern education. And then he went to America, started to teach Chan, and his teacher, ordination teacher, Master Dongchu, who's also a Chan practitioner of the Caodong line. He also had the lineage of Lingji going to him. Passed away. He went back from New York, went back to take care of funeral, and he visited Master Ling Yuan. Master Ling Yuan asked him, when my teacher introduced himself, Master, do you remember me? I was that young soldier who spent the night with you at such and such monastery, and you told me to put everything down. And Master Ling Yuan said, the monk who put down everything came back. He says, what are you doing these days? He says, I'm just deceiving people, teaching Chan. Like, doing something that's already readily apparent. It's like selling water, bottled water by the spring. It kind of has this flavor. It's like doing something completely useless. All beings are already free. So what are you doing? Telling them that they're free. So he says, deceiving sentient beings, teaching them Chan. And that's when Master Ling Yuan said, well, if you need to do that, you need certification to do that. Ask his attendant, go get my transmission book. And then the attendant was like, what the hell is going on? Who the hell is this guy? Come in here, I've never seen him before. So that's when he took out his book, Xingden Lu, record of the, it's called a record, this is a particular line, sublineage of Lingji, the record of flames from flames of the stars, Xingden Lu, or the lamps of the stars. And he put his name, gave him a new name, not Master Sheng Yen, but Master Sheng Yen was his ordination name that belonged to the Caodong line. So his other name that he never really uses because he was already published as Master Sheng Yen and so on. His name was 知刚为柔, which translates as so 知 means to know, to understand. Gang means vajra, diamond, so hard, indestructible. So I guess you can translate as that as knowing the indestructible. Wei rou is wei is only, rou is gentleness. So knowing the indestructible only through gentleness. So it's a kind of a play between hard, soft, indestructible, diamond, vajra, and gentleness. So that was his Lingji name. So that's the picture, upper right corner. Upper left, lower left. In the 80s, this is the picture in the 80s. This is the opening ceremony of the new Chan Center. So in the 70s, our center was on Elmhurst Avenue, one end of it, and diagonally across was the eventual place on the same street, and this was the opening ceremony. And the lower right corner, 1997, when the Dalai Lama came to Taiwan wanting to understand about the Bhikshuni precepts and finding out the possibility of regraphing the Chinese lineage for the nuns to Tibet, back to Tibet. So the lineage of Bhikshu and Bhikshuni, fully ordained monks and nuns, is a little different than the Bodhisattva precepts. The Bhikshuni and Bhikshu precepts need to be a continuous, uninterrupted lineage, human lineage. And my teacher was, besides being a Chan master, he was a historian too. So he studied this history of the precepts. And there were some gaps. There were some gaps in the Chinese lineage for the fully ordained monastic. Things are just not clear. There's no evidential data for some of the periods. So the Dalai Lama couldn't really bring that back to Tibet, but he wanted to speak with someone that knows the precepts in the Chinese Buddhist community and the Association of Chinese Buddhism in Taiwan, asked my teacher to represent. So I took this picture. This is in the hotel that he was staying at, the Dalai Lama. So I was serving as a translator for this occasion.
Oh.
So just some of the things that we did. And the year after that, that's 97, the year after that, I arranged a dialogue between the Dalai Lama and my teacher, centering on the wisdom teachings. And that was at Roseland, New York City. That was a very nice event, and drew a lot of attention in the Buddhist community, because it was the first time the Dalai Lama spoke with a Chinese Buddhist master, and the focus was wisdom. So they were conversing. My teacher representing Chan, the Dalai Lama belonged to the Gelugpa Tibetan tradition. Gelugpa had their own sutra-based Mahamudra. So he kind of took that angle to speak with my teacher on the nature of mind, methods of practice, and so on. So that was a very nice.
Are there recordings of that?
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, but I don't know if the YouTube version has English subtitles. So people wore earphones. We have simultaneous translation of Tibetan to English and Chinese to English, and English back to Tibetan and Chinese. So Dalai Lama will understand and my teacher will understand. So they are like these simultaneous translations. So there is a booklet that's out, a PDF. I can send it to you afterwards.
Thank you.
But the live event, it is on YouTube. But I'm not sure if it has English subtitles now. Yeah.
Okay. It's wonderful that it's recorded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, thank you for sharing these incredible stories. It's amazing to hear. Like Master Sheng Yen's experience. It feels very precious to be able to hear them. So, and then, this next slide, I was so struck when I saw these photos to feel like this was the lineage that, we're in contact with through you. So I wonder if you'd like to tell any stories or say something about that.
Sure. So my teacher went to the United States because there was no platform for him to teach and realize his vision of educational reform, monastic reform in Taiwan. So he came to America. That's the upper left corner, 1975, in the winter. In 1976, his ordination teacher and mentor, Master Dong Chu, the Cao Dong line, also Ling Ji, he also had transmission, which is so Master Sheng Yen in that photo is second one from the left, and Master Dong Chu is second one from the right, wearing the yellow robe. And that's when he came to the United States to visit him. So this was right in front of the Temple of Enlightenment, where my teacher taught. He came to America because the only monastery that invited him was Temple of Enlightenment in Bronx, New York. So he took up the invitation. His first group of students were New Yorkers. Came out to Bronx, practiced with him at this temple. So a year before Dong Chu passed away, he wanted to see what his student, Master Sheng Yen, was doing. And so he came to visit him, make sure that he's everything was going well with him, and kind of planting the seed. He was telling my teacher, so do you want my temple or not in Taiwan? So it's almost like he knew his time on earth was not going to be long. So he came to see Master Sheng Yen. And during this time, he, after this trip, he drafted a will. He revised his will to leave his two monasteries to Master Sheng Yen. And that forever changed Master Sheng Yen's life. Because if he did not have to take care of the temples in Taiwan, he would have stayed in the West. He wouldn't have to travel back and forth. His English would have been great. His whole course of life would have been quite different. And Master Ling Yuan, the the photo that you had before in the yellow robe, sitting down with Master Sheng Yen next to him in the previous slide, told him to put down that one. He was ordained by Master Xu Yun, empty cloud. And the photos that you have, the 3 black and white photos, are Master Xu Yun, empty cloud. Right below the upper left photo, one monk sitting there with a long beard, that's Master Xu Yun. Over 100 years old, this picture must have been taken. And Master Xu Yun is the ordination master of Master Ling Yuan. But he ordained him on behalf of his deceased disciple. So technically, Master Ling Yuan received the Dharma as a grand disciple. But he transmitted the teaching later on after ordination, so on, practicing. He took him in as a kind of grand disciple. So there's one generation gap there. But realistically, he was the disciple of Master Xu, studied with him, and so on, directly. So sometimes Chinese monastics would do that. They would tonsure, meaning ordain a novice on behalf of a deceased disciple or in the absence of someone else. So Master Dongchu, upper left corner, also did that. When my teacher was in solitary retreat, Master Dongchu actually ordained a novice, a young boy, on behalf of my teacher, who was in retreat in his absence. So it's kind of common. So Master Xu Yun ordained Master Ling Yuan, and the upper right corner you have some famous masters there. Master Xu Yun is in the center. To the right is Master Dao An, I believe. And I don't recognize the other monks, but they were prominent monks. The one below that, Master Xu Yun in the center, second row, sitting up, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monks sitting down in front of him, right? The one that's directly in front of him, a little bit to the left, that is, third one from the left, that's actually Master Xuanhua. I don't know if you know, City of 10,000 Buddhas.
Oh, wow.
In California.
Yes.
That's an early picture of Master Xuanhua.
Wow.
So, I have it written down somewhere who these people are, but I don't have it with me. There's some of them, Master Xuanhua also received Dharma transmission, but he received it from Master Xu Yun, and then later on in the 60s he went to United States, California, to transmit teachings. But each teacher's personality, style, teaching style can be vastly different. So Master Xuanhua belonged to this older, traditional, conservative strand of teaching Chinese Buddhism in Chan. And he himself was an ascetic, very disciplined, strict. And my teacher, having received modern education, PhD, but his formal education is actually up to 4th grade. He got into the PhD program because of his publications, so he kind of skipped all the elementary school, high school, college, and went directly to the graduate school. But still, again, he received this modern education. He traveled to many different places, so he's very receptive to modern teachings that accommodated to the needs of the people. So The way my teacher taught was also very different. His personality was also quite humorous sometimes, lively, so his teaching style was different. Lower left corner is again 1976 when Master Dongchu visited my teacher in New York. This is a picture from New Jersey. My teacher basically took him around to different temples and different teachers. And that photo, I believe, is a photo of him visiting a Tibetan, actually a Mongolian Buddhist meditation master. His name escapes me now, but he was quite famous, living in the New York, New Jersey area. That was his house. So my teacher, he was widely known at the time, so my teacher brought Master Dongchu to visit him.
Thank you. Yeah, it's incredible to hear the stories of the masters that have made such efforts in their own practice and then to bring it to the West to kind of spread. So I'm very grateful for that. And then here you are teaching, studying the Dharma. What was that like for you? How did you begin teaching? What was that experience like for you?
So I actually resisted teaching. So 2000, I left monasticism for various reasons. I felt I have to say, monasticism, in case for your audience, the ideals aside, really fits a particular personality types. Me, in the monastic tradition, didn't really quite fit. Even my training, because I was my teacher's attendant, my schedule was different from the resident monks and nuns. So in Taiwan, they didn't really see me as part of them. In New York, there were so few of us and so claustrophobic in this one building that day in and day out we used to be in. And there were some difficulties that I had there, living with some of the other monastics, that I felt that just go away for a little bit to see what happens. So in my robes, I packed up, and but there was many. I packed up and left, and but before that, I've already had different conversations with my teachers, Master Sheng Yen, about this. He used to give counseling to the lay people. The lay people, at least in Asia, in Taiwan, they're bringing on their life problems, their workspace, and their family issues that all of us young monastics, we have no idea about. We feel like a hypocrite, So, what do we know about modern living, family life? So we just counsel, recite this particular Avalokiteshvara name 10,000 times, and see if things will get better or something like that. So I was talking to him, saying, Shifu, wow, what are we doing here? I mean, they obviously had no interest to really dive into retreat practice. And yet, culturally, they're just Buddhist. So they come to Buddhists, this is before psychotherapy, so they come to the temple, they asking for advice, this and that. And here we are, have no life experience, telling them what to do. So I felt like a hypocrite. And I said, Shifu, we need to know how people live, like what is their suffering, what their experiences are. And he looked at me. He says, don't do it. He says, because he knew what I was thinking. So he says, it's like a doctor. The doctor doesn't have to get cancer to treat cancer. And I said, yes, that may be true, but the doctor will not truly know the experience of people who are having cancer and the anguish that they experience and the grief of all the family. And he says, he changed the metaphor. He says, if you dive into the ocean of suffering, you will not come back. And I said, Shifu, I'll be back. So I said, I won't get lost. So conversations like that we used to have. So, after the Dalai Lama event, 1998, 1999, year 2000, but 1999, there's a lot of things going on at the center, and I felt claustrophobic. I was trying to do things. Other people was trying to hold me back. And what I'm doing is promoting my teacher, very conservative, and I was never one who is rigid on doing this must be a right way. When my teacher asked questions, I regularly challenged him. Probably because I grew up in the West, the education system is like that. Teacher say something, you ask questions. You ask why. Why do you do this? Why do we have to do it? Blah, 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 blah. Whereas in Asia, teacher say something, it's kind of unidirectional. I say this, just take notes. You just do it. So my relationship with him was different. I didn't fit in the monastery, Sangha in Taiwan or New York. And I'm in this ambivalent space, privileged space. My teacher was preparing me, So it kind of brought on some difficulties with members of the Sangha. So it was just stifling. And even my teacher sometimes had to step in and say, stop obstructing what Guo Gu is doing to the other folks. But it's just very difficult. So I wanted to take a breath of fresh air. So I left. So he was in Taiwan. I said, Shifu, I'm leaving. I'm going to take a break. So I applied. So I applied to the university secretly to one of my teacher's students who used to, as a grad student, practice at the Chan Center, who I'd known since I was a little boy running around the Chan Center. His name is Dan Stevenson. He's a Buddhist scholar of Tiantai Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism now. Doctrinal. So I thought, I'll just get a master's degree. I'll just hang out. But he was living in Kansas, so I decided to see what it's like. I went out there. I wanted to bring Buddhism out into the world. And yet all of these conventions and rigid rules and regulations, conservative ways of doing things I felt was a hinder. So I started taking Buddhist studies classes and social work. And we had practical. We used to kind of go to the senior citizen home. In my robes, in Kansas. They have no idea what the heck I was. Some people thought I was Muslim. They have no idea what Muslims were. Long robes. You see a Chinese Muslim? So So I bought some what I call uniforms every time I go to do the practicum hours at the Senior Citizen Center. What were these uniforms? Clothing from Gap. So put on normal clothes. Go in there. And sometimes I would just had to go back to the university, pick up books, library. So it started to blur, my life. Robe, monastics, sometimes wear lay clothes, doing these social work, credit hour at the Senior Citizen Center, coming back. Next period was class, so it's just... And then I just thought, let's see what academia is like. I was already thinking that way. And then I enrolled my teacher. So I'm going to try this out. And after a year, I said, Shifu, I want to come back. It's too difficult up here, out here. He says, I thought you want to save all beings. I thought you want to dive into the ocean. Bring Buddhism outside. Says, you're not allowed to come back. Finish your degrees. At least, to do that. And then I finished my degree. And then he asked me to come back to continue teaching Western Dharma teacher training classes. I got into Princeton, New Jersey. It's just a train ride away. So continued at the center, at the New Jersey branch of Dharma Drama. Sometimes taught, and on the weekends I would go to Chan Center, teach, translate. So my life took a turn. It's kind of like academia. And then continuing doing retreats. And then the year before I graduated, I brought my teacher at that time was already unable to come back to the United States. His doctor prevented him. He had dialysis three times a week. So he was very sick. And I went back to Shifu. 2007, went back to Shifu. Take my kidney. You can have one of my kidney. He laughed at me. He said, it's not that simple. Plus, the old man taking a young body's kidney. It's unethical. I'm not going to do it. And I said, all your students in the West, they're not going to be able to see you. He says, you can bring them here. So I had a mission. I brought a handful of students of the Dharma teacher training course, which is his students, since the 70s, all the way to 2000. So I brought them all to Taiwan, saw him in 2008. And my teacher, in front of everyone, presented me with some symbolic objects of transmission. 2 incense sticks. Let me see. I don't know if you can see it. They're back here. 2 incense sticks. One is a phrase that represents koan practice. It says, take the forward step. It's a stock phrase from take the forward step beyond the 100-foot pole. Let go. And the other stick says, a line from Chan Master Hongzhi, silent illumination, the silent illumination practice. It can be translated as autumn pool clear pond, transparent to the bottom. So it's kind of a poetic expression for the mind of silent illumination, the mind of awakening. So this gave me two of his calligraphy with my name on it. He made a poem out of it. I didn't think anything of it. I was in tears when I received it. Okay, brought all his students. We went back, and then he got worse. And he passed away in February 2009. We were there summer of 2008. I brought everyone back to see him. And by the time I rushed back, he already passed away. So, coming back from that, my path was set. Academia. I got a job at Florida State University. It seems like my future was laid out for me. But there's something in me that, all those years of practicing with him, what I learned from him, I wanted to repay my gratitude to him. So after he passed away, I took up formally teaching Chan as my way to share what I have learned, the Lord that I have learned from him to the world. So it's my teaching. The photos that you see, different places, like UK, San Francisco, some other place, Midwest. This is my way of repaying my gratitude to my teacher. That's how I see it, even now. So the legacy of my teacher, unfortunately, filtered through me. At least people get some idea of wisdom and compassion of my teacher.
Well, thank you so much for offering it. It's one of the things we want to do as Dharma Gates is really promote teachers who have entered into this serious, this intensive and thorough training, who really devoted their lives to this. So we hope to be able to help spread the Dharma as it's expressed through you. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you for providing this platform featuring different teachers, different lineages. It's wonderful. Thank you.
I think I'm aware we only have a few more minutes. So we just have two more slides. The first is, so if people want to find you, you're at the Tallahassee Chan Center. That's correct?
Tallahassee. Tallahassee Chan Center. It's in Tallahassee, Florida. The upper left is this news reporter took a picture of me of what's available in Tallahassee, different spiritual traditions. So she wrote about the center here. And below that is the space of our meditation hall. So when I began teaching in 2009, when my teacher passed away, being a professor, all the donations and teaching and so on, we just saved. I established a core group of people, and we saved the money, and then we're renting out the space. Eventually, we'll have enough money to purchase this current space. It's 3 buildings. The meditation hall, which are the other parts of the library, the foyer, front reception area, bathrooms, and so on, interview room. And then another building is the kitchen and kind of multi-purpose room. We do some stretching yogas there. We have some events there. During the retreat, we have meals there. And then the momentum really started when I formally began to teach. And many supporters of my teacher began to support me. And I'm very grateful to them for having the faith, in this tradition. So we bought in addition 5 acres of land behind us in the middle of the city. That will begin to develop in a few years a community of long-term retreat residents and also the elderly, retired teachers, different Buddhist lineages. Dharma teachers don't really make a lot of money, so we wanted to provide a space in which they pay whatever they can, but a space in which they can live the last period of their life with integrity in a community that practices wisdom and compassion. I call it the evergreen community. So bringing people together, making connections, different schools of Buddhism. So that will be right behind the Chan Hall. My salary comes from FSU. So the money that we raise, we basically can fund this. A kind of intergenerational community of young people and the elderly, bring them together. As opposed to, I guess that kind of traces back to the senior citizen homes that I used to visit when I was in Kansas. What I witnessed there was like these out-of-the-way places. It's almost like the culture want to put all these old people together, tuck them away somewhere, out of sight, out of mind. So this evergreen, we're in the middle of the city. It's kind of a critique against that way of doing things. And so you have pictures of me doing retreats. To the right, upper right, is an organization that called Dharma Relief that I founded. Bringing together, again, making connections, bringing together all Buddhist traditions to address certain social needs. So first we did during the pandemic, the FDA approved masks to send to hospitals. 1.2, 1.3 million masks to different hospitals in North America. And the effort bring together all the efforts of different Buddhist traditions. The second initiative is to healing racism. So in our lecture series on Tallahassee Chan Center, it's recorded, it's on YouTube. We invited different teachers, researchers to talk about racism from intersectional dimensions of education, criminal justice system, social work, health, and here again we have Reverend Holmes locally of a black church in Tallahassee. We invited him also to speak to our community. So he was in the black community. There's a lot of distrust, and there's a long history. If we try to understand from the history of health care, of this distrust and abuse of black people, and so there's a lot of distrust among people in the black community to get vaccinated. So he had this idea of fundraising to buy a vaccination van, to go to these communities, pockets where black people live, and offer that. So we thought that was a great idea. So this is us giving him, we raised $10,000 to add a little bit to that project that he was spearheading in support of vaccinating people, so people can get back to life.
Yeah, it's incredible to see a teacher who's transmitting the traditional way of Hongzhi and also so socially engaged, so expressing the Bodhisattva vow in very practical kind of societal ways. I have tremendous respect for that. Yeah. That's really the last.
What my teacher is doing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying, just continuing what how my teacher taught. Life is practice. There's no kind of compartmentalizing. That's life. That's practice. So, all different aspects of life. This last slide is what I was talking about before for Dharma Relief, the first initiative to offer free masks to different hospitals in North America. And if you search Dharma Relief, you can find the website and find out more information there. And all the participating centers.
Wonderful.
For example, Mado Moore, Roshi, he was one of the participating centers that supported this. Yeah. So, and many more different traditions.
Wonderful. All right, that's our last slide. Oh, there we go. And I didn't. Yeah, we're a little late. I'm so glad that you had the time today to join us and to share stories from your life and from your practice and of your teachers. It's just a tremendous honor to have you here. I was hoping to ask you some questions about the book, but maybe we'll have to ask you on for a second conversation. Maybe just for listeners, I found it really extraordinary because it seemed like it was both something that beginners could really learn a lot from, like how to approach practice, the different attitudes that are really so beneficial for practice. And then also for more advanced or more experienced practitioners, I thought your descriptions of the pitfalls was really helpful. Just kind of really useful. And then an incredible exploration of the Yogacara kind of view of perception that I thought really made more theoretical sense of what it means to stay with direct experience, kind of helped ground that out for me. And then some extraordinary translations of Hongzhi. So it's a really rich book, and deep gratitude to you for writing it and for all your efforts.
Thank you for putting the plug for the book. This book is a tribute to my teacher. He taught silent illumination in a particular way, but silent illumination is very organic. There's many approaches to it, so in order to complement what my teacher had taught, I edited and translated and wrote this book for that purpose, coming from some different angles at it.
So thank you.
Hopefully in the future we'll be able to meet in person.
Yeah.
And our audience, we can practice together.
Well, I was about to say we have an online event with you in August. So if any listener or viewer wants to join and kind of get to actually practice more with Guo Gu and get to spend some time, we'll be doing that. I think it'll be a 2 or maybe it'll be a 4-hour event. I don't remember. I didn't actually schedule that, but you'll have some time. And then also you are offering in-person retreats at your center now too. Is that true?
Yes. In early August, we're slowly phasing into a full program, in-person program. So we begun doing that very recently, just twice a week. But then in August we have this 5-day retreat.
Wonderful.
In person, but also open to people online if they want to join.
Wonderful. And then if someone wanted to do like a more long-term study with you, is there a residential program there?
Not yet, but soon.
Okay.
So we don't have it formally set up, but some of my students actually do come for like a month or several weeks, because we have retreat housing. So they do that already, but it's just not formally set up. But in the future, soon, I hope we'll have that established.
Okay, so if there's some college students who want to spend a spring vacation training with you, there might be possibilities for that. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Guo Gu.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for doing the Dharma Gate, making Dharma available to everyone. Much needed effort, targeting all kinds of people, but specifically the younger generation. The Dharma will eventually change with them, expressed in their own way. And so we're planting that seed, which is wonderful. Thank you.
It's my joy and my vow. So, yeah. Thank you.